There comes a moment in your life when you become tired of being available to everyone except yourself. You answer the messages, explain your decisions, chase people who stop choosing you, and keep showing up for a life that no longer feels like yours. And then, quietly, something inside you whispers, enough. Not because you hate the world, not because you want revenge, but because somewhere beneath all the noise, you know that the person you could become cannot survive inside the life you are currently living. So imagine this. You disappear for 6 months. No dramatic announcement, no explanation to people who never understood you. No need to prove that you are changing. You simply become quiet. You step away from the endless opinions, distractions, comparisons, emotional attachments, and little habits that have been consuming your days. And while everyone else assumes nothing is happening, something extraordinary begins happening where nobody can see it. You begin meeting the person you abandoned years ago. Now let me tell you something most people never understand. Disappearing does not mean running away from your life. It means temporarily removing yourself from everything that has been keeping you from building one. There is a difference between isolation and intentional solitude. Isolation says, nobody wants me. Solitude says, I need to hear myself again. One comes from pain. The other can become the beginning of power. Because if you continue living exactly as you have been living, surrounded by exactly the same distractions, reacting to exactly the same people, repeating exactly the same habits, you should not be surprised when tomorrow looks exactly like yesterday. Your future is not created by what you wish for occasionally. It is created by what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is become unavailable to the version of yourself that keeps making excuses. For 6 months, imagine giving yourself permission to become boring. No need to impress anybody. No need to post every achievement. No need to explain your silence. No need to let people know what you are working on. You wake up, and instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for your purpose. Instead of asking who noticed you, you ask what you built. Instead of wondering who misses you, you ask whether you are finally becoming someone you respect. That question changes everything, because many people are not actually addicted to people. They are addicted to the feeling those people give them: attention, validation, reassurance, the little notification that says, you matter, the message from someone who has been distant, the reaction from someone whose approval you secretly crave, the possibility that someone might finally choose you. And when you become dependent on those tiny emotional rewards, your attention becomes a currency other people can spend for free. You call it love sometimes. But sometimes it is loneliness wearing the clothes of love. Sometimes you say, I just miss them, when what you really miss is who you believed you were when they wanted you. Sometimes you keep checking their profile, rereading old conversations, imagining what they might be thinking, because uncertainty feels more exciting than acceptance. You are not always holding on to the person. Sometimes you are holding on to the possibility, and that possibility can keep you imprisoned for years. So disappear, not to make them wonder where you went, not to make someone jealous, not to create a mysterious image. If you disappear with the secret hope that somebody will come looking for you, you have not disappeared at all. You are still living for their reaction. True withdrawal begins when you stop asking, will they notice? And start asking, will I notice the difference in myself? That is where transformation begins. 6 months is long enough for excuses to become embarrassing, long enough for discipline to become familiar, long enough for a distracted mind to become focused, long enough for your body to change, your skills to sharpen, your confidence to return, and your relationship with yourself to become different. 6 months is not magic. 6 months is simply enough time for repeated decisions to finally become visible. And the first thing you must disappear from is not society. It is your old routine. Because your routine is quietly writing your biography. Every morning, you vote for the person you are becoming. Every hour you spend scrolling, you are voting for distraction. Every hour you spend learning, building, exercising, creating, reading, practicing, or working towards something meaningful, you are casting another vote for your future. You may not see the result today, but life has a remarkable way of collecting your votes and presenting you with the final outcome later. That is why people become shocked by transformation. They see the result, but never witness the repetitions. They see the confident person, but not the mornings when he wanted to quit. They see the successful business, but not the years of uncertainty. They see the changed body, but not the meals refused and the workouts completed when motivation disappeared. They see the calm person, but not the emotional battles fought in silence. They see the destination and call it luck because they were not present for the journey. Let them call it luck. You do not need to correct them. There is tremendous power in becoming less explainable. When you stop announcing every intention, something interesting happens. Your energy stops going toward describing the life you are going to build and starts going toward building it. You stop receiving temporary satisfaction from telling people your plans, and you begin receiving permanent satisfaction from completing them. That is why silence can be so powerful. Silence gives your goals room to breathe, and silence also reveals people. When you stop initiating every conversation, you discover who is genuinely interested in you and who is simply accustomed to your availability. When you stop chasing, you discover who naturally comes closer. When you stop explaining yourself, you discover who respects you without needing a performance. And when certain people disappear because you stopped entertaining them, you may experience pain. Let it hurt. Pain is not always evidence that you made the wrong decision. Sometimes pain is simply evidence that something mattered to you. You can love someone and still walk away. You can miss someone and still refuse to return. You can forgive someone and still create distance. You can care deeply about a person without giving them unlimited access to your peace. Emotional maturity is not becoming cold. It is learning that love without boundaries can become self-abandonment. And perhaps you have abandoned yourself more than you realize. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You stayed when something inside you told you to leave. You accepted crumbs because you were afraid there might be nothing else. You lowered your standards because you were terrified of being alone. You allowed people to repeatedly hurt you because losing them seemed more frightening than losing yourself. But loneliness is not the worst thing that can happen to a human being. The worst thing can be becoming so afraid of loneliness that you build a life in which you are never alone, yet never truly yourself. 6 months can change that. You begin spending time with yourself without immediately trying to escape. You walk without headphones sometimes. You sit quietly. You write down thoughts you have been avoiding. You ask uncomfortable questions. Why am I always seeking approval? Why do I keep choosing people who make me feel uncertain? Why am I afraid to fail? Why do I procrastinate when I know exactly what needs to be done? Why do I keep saying I want a different life while protecting the habits that created this one? These questions are uncomfortable because they remove the excuses, but they also return your power. Because once you understand that your life is shaped by your choices, you no longer have to wait for somebody else to rescue you. You can begin changing the environment, the habits, the standards, the people, and the thoughts that surround your future. And let me tell you something about discipline. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, something inside you becomes stronger. You tell yourself, when I say I will do something, I can trust me. That trust is priceless because confidence is not created by staring into a mirror and repeating positive words. Confidence grows when your actions repeatedly prove to your mind that you are capable of doing difficult things. So wake up when you said you would. Work when you said you would. Work when you said you would. Exercise when you said you would. Stop when you said you would. Meef when you said you would. Do the small things. Because the small things are never small when repeated for 6 months. A person who reads 10 pages every day may not feel intelligent after one morning. A person who trains for 30 minutes may not look transformed after one workout. A person who saves a small amount may not feel wealthy after 1 month. A person who learns a skill for 1 hour may not become exceptional in 1 week. But continue, human beings often quit because they underestimate the power of accumulation. They want transformation to feel dramatic. They want one morning where they wake up completely different. But real transformation is quieter. It happens while you are making breakfast, while you are turning off the phone, while you are choosing the difficult task, while you are saying no to another distraction, while you are going to bed instead of staying awake, seeking attention from someone who is not thinking about you. It happens so quietly that you may not notice until one day you look back and realize that the person who once begged for attention would now rather protect his peace. The person who once feared being alone now enjoys his own company. The person who once needed everyone to understand him no longer needs to explain. The person who once dreamed about changing his life has become the person doing the work. That is the real disappearance. You do not disappear from the world. You disappear from the version of yourself that was constantly asking the world for permission. And somewhere during those 6 months, something else begins to happen. Your relationship with failure changes. You stop seeing failure as a verdict and start seeing it as information. You tried something and it did not work. Good. Now you know something you did not know before. You made a mistake. Good. Now you have evidence about what needs to change. Someone rejected you. It hurts. But rejection does not automatically mean you are unworthy. Sometimes it simply means two paths were not meant to continue together. Do not turn rejection into an identity. Do not take one person's inability to recognize your value and make it the foundation of your self-image. You are allowed to begin again. And perhaps this is the message you need most. You are not behind. You may have wasted time. You may have made terrible decisions. You may have trusted the wrong people. You may have spent years distracted. You may have watched opportunities pass while you were afraid. You may look at people younger than you and wonder why they have achieved what you have not. But comparison is a thief that never gets satisfied. There will always be somebody ahead of you. There will always be somebody richer, more attractive, more successful, more experienced, more talented, or more recognized. The question is not whether you are ahead of them. The question is whether you are ahead of who you were. That is a much more useful measurement. 6 months from now, you could still be explaining why you cannot change. Or you could be living inside the evidence that you did. Imagine 6 months without unnecessary arguments. 6 months without chasing people. 6 months without waking up and immediately consuming everybody else's opinions. 6 months without constantly comparing your life to carefully edited versions of strangers' lives. 6 months of learning. 6 months of working. 6 months of training. 6 months of reading. 6 months of creating. 6 months of sleeping properly. 6 months of protecting your mind. 6 months of becoming deeply comfortable with the sentence, I do not need to prove myself today. Think about who could emerge from that. And here is where the journey becomes even deeper. When you become disciplined, you begin to attract different things into your life. Not because the universe suddenly rewards you with everything you want, but because your standards have changed. You notice opportunities you previously ignored. You recognize unhealthy relationships sooner. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop mistaking emotional chaos for passion. You begin understanding that real connection does not require constant anxiety. Real love does not require you to destroy your dignity to keep somebody. Real friendship does not require you to perform. Real confidence does not require an audience. And real success does not require you to announce every step. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for your heart is to stop trying to force an answer from someone who has already given you one through their behavior. People communicate through patterns. Pay attention. The person who consistently makes time for you is communicating. The person who repeatedly disappears is communicating. The person who respects your boundaries is communicating. The person who only returns when they need something is communicating. You do not need to decode every silence. Sometimes silence is the message. And once you understand that, you stop wasting your emotional energy trying to solve people who are not asking to be understood. You turn that energy inward. You ask, what can I build with this? That question can save years because your emotional energy is one of your greatest assets. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your mind spends 8 hours analyzing someone's behavior, that is 8 hours that did not go toward your own future. If you spend the evening wondering whether somebody misses you, you may wake up tomorrow still waiting while your own dreams remain untouched. Do not give somebody else the steering wheel of your life simply because they once touched your heart. You can honor the memory without returning to the situation. You can appreciate what happened without demanding that it happen again. You can grieve and still grow. You can hurt and still build. You can be disappointed and still become dangerous in the best possible sense. Not dangerous to people, but dangerous to your limitations, because eventually you realize something extraordinary. Nobody is coming to give you permission. Nobody is going to knock on your door and announce that you are finally ready. Nobody is going to remove every fear before you begin. You begin while afraid. You begin while uncertain. You begin while imperfect. You begin with what you have. And then you improve. This is how a life changes. Not through one giant decision, but through thousands of quiet decisions that nobody applauds. There will be mornings when you feel powerful. There will also be mornings when you feel nothing. Work anyway. There will be nights when loneliness whispers your old habits back into your mind. Stay anyway. There will be moments when you wonder whether anybody notices your progress. Remember this. The purpose of progress is not to be noticed. There will be days when your results are invisible. Kant knew the seed does not become less valuable because it is underground. Some of the most important work in your life will happen where nobody can see it. Your character is being built there. Your patience is being built there. Your discipline is being built there. Your future is being built there. And one day, the outside world will finally see what your private life has been creating. They may say, you changed. And you will know the truth. You did not suddenly change. You simply stopped betraying yourself. You stopped making promises you had no intention of keeping. You stopped choosing temporary comfort over permanent growth. You stopped allowing loneliness to negotiate your standards. You stopped letting rejection define your worth. You stopped waiting for motivation. You started moving. That is what 6 months can do. Not because 6 months is some magical number, but because 6 months of intentional living can expose the difference between what you say you want and what you are willing to work for. And perhaps you do not need 6 months away from everyone. Perhaps you need 6 months closer to yourself. 6 months where your phone becomes a tool instead of a master. 6 months where your room becomes a place of work instead of escape. 6 months where your body becomes something you respect instead of something you criticize. 6 months where your mind becomes a place of clarity instead of constant noise. 6 months where your money is directed toward freedom instead of impulse. 6 months where your attention belongs to your future instead of your past. And 6 months where you finally stop asking, what do they think of me? And begin asking, what do I think of the person I am becoming? That question will follow you into the morning. It will follow you when you are tempted. It will follow you when nobody is watching. It will follow you when the old relationship calls. It will follow you when you want to quit. And if you keep answering it honestly, your life will begin to change. Maybe you have spent enough time trying to be understood. Maybe it is time to become undeniable to yourself. Maybe you have spent enough time chasing people. Maybe it is time to chase your potential. Maybe you have spent enough time replaying what happened. Maybe it is time to create what happens next. And maybe the greatest revenge is not becoming successful, so somebody regrets losing you. Maybe the greatest victory is reaching a point where you no longer care whether they regret it. You are free. That is the goal, not revenge. Freedom from needing to be chosen. Freedom from needing to be praised. Freedom from needing constant stimulation. Freedom from emotional chaos. Freedom from your old excuses. Freedom from the belief that your past has authority over your future. You do not need to become somebody else. You need to become more fully yourself. The version of you beneath the fear, beneath the insecurity, beneath the comparison, beneath the need for approval, beneath the habits you inherited. There is a person inside you who already knows what needs to change. You have heard that voice before. You ignored it. Maybe this time, listen. And if you decide to disappear for 6 months, do not make an announcement. Do not post a quote about disappearing. Do not tell everybody that you are entering your new era. Just begin. Quickly. Wake up. Work. Learn, train, build. Pray. Reflect. Sev. Doctricate. Repeat. Let your results introduce you. Let your peace introduce you. Let your character introduce you. And when the 6 months are over, you may discover that the most surprising thing is not that other people see you differently. It is that you see yourself differently. You trust yourself now. You know you can endure discomfort. You know you can the small things. You know you can survive rejection. You know you can sit alone without falling apart. You know you can work without applause. You know you can start again. And that knowledge is worth more than attention. Because once you trust yourself, you become very difficult to control. You no longer need the world to constantly reassure you that you are enough. You know. You no longer need someone to tell you that you can succeed. You are already doing the work. You no longer need to run from silence. You have learned how to hear yourself inside it. So if your life feels confusing right now, do not panic. Maybe you are not lost. Maybe you are being invited to become quiet enough to hear your next direction. Maybe this season feels empty because the old version of your life is losing its grip. Maybe the loneliness is not the end of your story. Maybe it is the room where your next identity is being built. Lies in the small things. Give yourself permission to step back. Give yourself permission to stop chasing. Give yourself permission to heal. Give yourself permission to become disciplined. Give yourself permission to build something nobody understands yet. And give yourself 6 months, not 6 months to become perfect, 6 months to become consistent, because perfection is fragile. Consistency changes lives. One day, 6 months from now, you will wake up. The same sun will rise. The world will still be noisy. People will still have opinions. Somebody will still disappoint you. Somebody will still misunderstand you. Problems will still exist, but you will be different. And that difference will not come from having a perfect life. It will come from having a stronger mind, a calmer heart, higher standards, clearer priorities, and a deeper understanding that your life belongs to you. So go quietly, not because you are weak, because you are finally serious. Disappear from distraction. Disappear from unnecessary validation. Disappear from the habit of explaining every move. Disappear from the people who only know how to access the old version of you. And spend these next 6 months becoming the person your future self will thank you for. Then come back, not with an announcement, not with a speech, not with a demand for recognition. Come back with results. Come back with peace. Come back with discipline. Come back with wisdom. Come back with a life so different that you no longer need to explain where you have been. And when someone asks, what happened to you? You can smile because the answer is simple. You finally decided to stop disappearing from yourself. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If these words reached a part of you that you have been trying to understand, stay close to this journey. Subscribe, not simply for another video, but as a reminder that your mind, your habits, your choices, and your future are worth protecting. And when the noise becomes loud again, come back here. Sometimes one quiet message is enough to remind you who you were, who you are, and who you still have the power to become.